Hello and welcome. My name is Shane Kelly. I am an entrepreneur, venture investor, film financier over the last 20 years. And I'm delighted to welcome all of you here to this important conversation on uh, from Virtuous hosted by URBANIME. So I'm really delighted to be here. And this today is Juneteenth, and I'm really happy to see that it's finally being recognized as a federal holiday. Um, it's a big step, and I have mixed feelings about it, but I still feel like it's a big step and a really positive thing. What I want to do just to kick off this conversation, because we're going to talk today about kind of Black artistic freedom and expression and independence and ownership, like all those things, all the things, right? So I'm really excited to welcome these panelists here. So what I'd like to do is just first of all, just everyone to be able to introduce yourself. I'm accustomed to being behind the scenes, writing the checks, trying to knock down hurdles for all the brilliant kind of creatives and visionaries that I support. And so I'm going to do just that today. So with that, I'd like each of you to just, share, a little bit about your what you do today in your journey that brought you to this point. So if we could, Stephanie, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure. So my name is Stephanie Williams. I am a freelance writer. So write comics. Also do some pop culture journalism. And I came into, I guess, my creative independence. I was an electron microscopist. I worked in science. I was a STEM major, STEM career, STEM professional, and just felt stifled and didn't feel like my worth was being valued. So after many years of frustration, I decided enough was enough and decided to find some worth and understand my value and my voice and kind of cultivated it into a new career. So here I am, not working in a lab anymore, talking to you all about being a Black creative, which has just brought me so much joy. So I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's great. Maria, could you go next, please?
Hello, everybody. Happy Juneteenth. Also, happy Pride. I am calling from San Francisco, also known as the land of the Ohlone. I am representing today myself, but I'm also representing Quelly TV. Quelly TV is a streaming platform. It is the largest Black-owned Black curator streaming platform with over 500 titles on it. We represent almost about 500 creators also, and it is everything from animation to documentary to narrative to fiction, and outweighs pretty much on a global level any other streaming platform hosting Black content. And then for myself, I'm a filmmaker. I'm from San Francisco. I've been making films for 8 years, all independent. I mostly make narrative. I'm particularly a sci-fi nerd, geek, whatever is the word these days that kids call themselves. But I am very happy to be here with everyone.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I should um, I should actually kick us off with that. So I appreciate you with your land acknowledgement. And I don't know if we have the ability actually to share out messages through the chat. So what I will say is that there is a website called native-land.ca. C as in Charles, A as in Apple. So native-land.ca, and you can actually see what land you're sitting on right now. So just kind of appreciate you lifting that up, Maria, and acknowledging that we're all uh, here on land that was inhabited um, by the original indigenous inhabitants. I'm here on Salinan land, which is also known as Paso Robles, California. So that's where I'm sitting right now. So invite everyone to, if you'd like to share your land acknowledgement, please do. If not, that's also fine too. So with that, I'll turn it to Terrence. Could you go next, please?
Yes. First of all, this has to be one of the best Juneteenths ever. I am sitting on a piano with a bunch of other independent Black creatives. I've never done that before. I'm sure our ancestors would be very proud. I'm from New Orleans originally, and I run a collective called African American Graphic Designers. We have 2.5 thousand people in a Facebook group, and we work as a collective on jobs that are national, anywhere from like Princeton's Black Student Alumni to the Center on Violence Against Black Women. So we do a lot of jobs together. We are learning to work together as a team and learning to value each other so that we can take that value and our creativity out into the community. And thank you for allowing me to be here. And I would look up my land, but I'm too nervous because then I would look it up and then like lose the screen and then get lost, and I don't want to do that.
Cool. Thank you, Terrence. Ryan, could I go to you next, please?
Hi, my name is Ryan Benjamin. I'm a professional artist for over 27 years within this entertainment industry. I began my career as a comic artist for Image Comics and branched off into Marvel and DC. Eventually, that took me into the animation world where I did tons of animation for I worked on mostly video games. So I did work like on Sonic the Hedgehog and a couple of the games. Um, Eventually, I spent about 15 years at Sony as a senior artist over there, also, and I still to this day I have my hands dipped into all different departments of this industry as long as it's art related. Um, Probably my greatest achievement. Well, I've had a couple of them, but probably my greatest personal achievement was creating my own book called Brothers Bond. It came out on Webtoons. I was nominated for an Eisner Award in 2018 as Best Web Comic, and now I run an art studio called Comic Pro Bootcamp, and I partner with a Filipino and two Mexicans, and we actually teach professional comic art to the masses, to anyone who's out there who's willing to learn how to polish their craft and turn their art or their IP into a more well polished professional look. And I used to travel the world pre-COVID, but now I'm on lock. So that's basically what I do.
Thank you, Ryan. And last but not least, Wesley.
Hi, I'm Wesley Louis. I'm a director and a co-founder of the Line Animation Studios based in London. Um, so primarily what I do is I work on animated commercials or like video game intros, things like that. And just currently in the process of developing some of my own series work. So yeah, I got into it animation about I think it was like 2006 when I went into study, back into study, and I've just been doing that ever since. So I've worked on a feature film called The Illusionist. I worked on The Amazing World of Gumball as a in between artist, and now with my own studio, we're just kind of creating our own content and doing again commercial work and stuff for like video games and web content and stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you all for sharing that. Where I want to kick us off here in this conversation is really thinking about ownership and independence. Now, as an investor, I tend to think about this in a very literal sense, right? Like who, what is the thing and who actually holds ownership over that thing, right? From a legal standpoint. And there's ownership and there's control. right? Who actually controls what happens? Who makes, in the film world, in the creative world, who makes those creative decisions, right? In the film world, we talk about it as who has final cut, right? Who makes the final decision of what makes it in and what doesn't. Uh, but that's different, right, than ownership itself. So, what I want to open it up as just a discussion for everyone to jump in on is what how do you think about independence and ownership, right? What is it that when did your so that I think what will lead into is how your independence journey got started and when that really took off. But first, let's think about kind of independence and ownership. And so how do you define independence? Let me pass that to the panel. And maybe we could kick it off in backwards order. And Wesley, maybe we could start with you in terms of how do you think about independence in your work, given that you kind of move from doing a lot of work on these larger projects to now having your own studio where you're really directing the projects that you take on. How do you think about independence in that environment?
Um, it's an interesting question. I think I guess I mean the whole reason we created the studio is to get that kind of independence. So I think because I founded it with five other uh, animators, directors. So we're all uh, creatives first before we're like businessmen, I suppose. And I think we just enjoy making our own stuff. In fact, the studio was, I would say, founded on us making short films by ourselves. And I think off the back of that, we started getting more projects from like, bigger companies, but they would say to us to do it in the style that we were asked to do it in. One of my biggest problems working in the industry was, someone would ask you to do something, but they would always ask you to do it in somebody else's style or in somebody else's voice. So I think having our own studio and people coming to us for what we do is like is really fulfilling actually, because it's very frustrating to kind of like, why don't you draw like that guy? I'm like, well, why are you asking me for? Why don't you get the person that you want, sort of thing? But sometimes maybe that person's too expensive, or they can't get hold of them, or too busy. And I think it's really nice that any company or client that comes to us, they come to us for what we do, and individually as um, six directors, we all have an individual style. We all have a voice. So if they see something on our website that I've done, they're like, yeah, do it exactly like that. So that way, I'm completely being myself. Obviously, there's sometimes you have to kind of bend a couple of things because it's you're serving a client, but ultimately everything I do, whether it's commercial or personal, it has my own voice, and I think that's what we take pride in the most. And as a point for our company, we always try to do an independent project every year. So even if it's like a 2 minute short or something like that, we always like try to allocate, some funds to making something that comes from us. So all the things that we learn from all the commercial work that we do, we try to push it back into our personal work. And I think that's been to see our company grow and for us to be able to do those things and actually people respond really well to it has been probably one of the most liberating experiences of my life creatively.
That's beautiful and powerful, actually. And I do want to go to Stephanie next, because Stephanie, you talked about making a very deliberate and intentional decision to seek your independence, right? And to build your own creative freedom and to chart your own path. So how did you think about independence when you started down that journey and how has that changed over time, if at all?
So I don't know, like the way that I thought about independence before was in a very binary way. So it was just, you produce a product, you sell it, and think of it as a physical thing. So I think that's why for a while, like I just didn't consider that as a route that I wanted to take. So it wasn't until I'm working this job that I did enjoy, but the environment was just really toxic, and there was no way for me to like grow. I was capped, and I didn't like that. So then that's when I started thinking of independence in a way of making sure that that ceiling, you make the rules, right? Like that ceiling never caps until you say it. So, and hopefully you never do say that. So, for me, the product that I had that I could offer was my voice. And that was talking about either comics or just movie, TV shows, and stuff that I was watching, and talking about it in a way that was very different from the white guys that we see all the time that usually have those platforms. And once I really kind of realized that and got comfortable in it, that's when I decided to figure out, so what is the best avenues for me to kind of do this? So it really started as a hobby, as something for me to like just stay sane while stuck at that 9 to 5. So I went from podcasting, and then a podcast that I did called Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro, where we talked about Black superheroines and comics, be it the big two or independent comics, but just getting that knowledge out there to folks who were unfamiliar with them. And that got me invited to the art summit at the Kennedy Center in 2018. And I think that was the moment where I said, wow, so you really can fashion this and turn it into to something that will not only fulfill you, but also allow you to pay bills. And then from there, I got into writing because, I mean, I'm a scientist. I love research, and that's the way that I treat when I'm talking about comics or how I'm looking at movies and stuff like that. So I've found a way to kind of take those skills and fashion them into writing, which is a product that I can produce and give to someone to pay me in exchange. And it just kind of went from there. So really, my independence was understanding my voice, understanding its worth, and dictating what that meant for me, and deciding what I spoke about, and just pretty much making it my own thing. So fast forward, I wanted to always wanted to get into comics, got into that, started my own web comic, Parenthood Activate, and it just kind of blossomed. But never did I have to change the way that I spoke. I didn't have to dilute things for white people to understand it because that wasn't my audience. So in that, and having projects seek me out that allowed me to be my own authentic self, has been life changing. Because no longer am I capped by, promotions or anything like that. Like I can figure out the next thing because pivoting is something that I am unfortunately I've become really great at, and I have the independence now to pivot when I need to, come back to something or go forth. So that is how I think of independence now, and that's just that the ceiling is just not there.
Thank you for that. That's and I really building on that. I mean, I think the idea of having your own voice, not just having your own voice, but embracing, right, the power of the pen, of your own pen and your own voice, and not feeling like you need to censor or um, adjust it for other folks, which we are so accustomed to doing. Um, you know, I want to go to Terrence next with this question because with this conversation and this thread, because really, by founding this organization that you have, the African American Graphic Designers Organization, you're basically like lifting up, building a platform, right, for a lot of folks to really gain some measure of independence and build their own careers and chart their own paths. Um, and graphic design is just it's something that I think a lot of folks would love to be able to eat while doing that, for a living. So given that and the platform that you're building there, and also your experience as an art director and an artist yourself, you know, tell us about how you think about independence and how you think about equipping, Black artists, other Black artists, and preparing them for their own independence and empowerment, and to help them find their own voice and to eat.
Yeah, yeah, it's a multi-layered answer because there's always the business perspective, there's the personal perspective, but I'm glad you brought up the community angle of this because There's this movie called A Lesson. It's a book called Lesson Before Dying with Ernest J. Gaines. And it's about what the community puts upon this one guy. And though he thinks he has the freedom to choose, he really doesn't, because he realizes that he's a part of a community. And with being a part of that community, there is a responsibility. So I think of independence as being independent enough to always help my community. And that's something that I can't do working for another corporation. So every aspect, every morsel, every bit of the energy that I have can be directed towards doing things for the to uplift Black folks. And then within that, teaching other people how to be independent within that community is always very personal, because there are a lot of people, a lot of creatives who struggle with imposter syndrome. So it's not just about teaching them the business aspects and how to be successful in terms of business, although that is very important. It's really doing a deep dive into creativity and helping other people feel worth, so that we can value each other and so that we can celebrate our independence, but yet move forward as a community. And that's something that I've been learning and been readjusting. Even terms like saying that I'm independent, it's something that I'm looking at and saying like, well, is that an American perspective, or should we all be looking at this as like, I'm not really independent, I am still part of a community, and we have to move forward as a community. So I feel like I'm free, but I also feel like I am also bound to things to help my community grow, so that they can have the opportunities that I didn't have when I was in college.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of independence is being able to choose what you're bound to,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And you're kind of choosing to lift folks up, and I think that's powerful. And then we'll go to Ryan, and then Maria. I would like to just pose it to you in terms of your own journey as a creative and as an artist.
Hmm.
I think one thing that Wesley brought up was this notion of kind of the trade-off between doing work that's work for hire, right? That you're getting paid to do, and the trade-off with kind of making sure that you represent your own voice. And I think that does come with some very difficult decisions that when I was early and I was talking about independent film, I was like, well, it's independent, right? Like you can do whatever you want to do. And then I quickly learned that no, 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 no. Because whoever is partnering with you on that, whoever's doing these things, like they're gonna have a word about that, right? They're gonna have
Hmm.
something to say. But as you gain these accolades and different experiences, and you can put certain things behind your belt in certain relationships, right? Like when that happens, at least personally, I've found that I have more and more freedom to say, to do on my own terms. And part of that means walking away from projects,
Mm.
right? That are
Mm.
not aligned. And that's a very difficult decision, especially when it comes with money, especially
Mm.
when it comes with audience, it comes with recognition, it comes with all these things, right?
Hmm.
And that's why I appreciate Urbanime for hosting this conversation, because this is so important. So Ryan and then Maria, like, could y'all talk about like, some difficult decisions you may have had to make in terms of who you partner with, and how much latitude you've been able to gain over the course of like the different wins that you've had as an artist, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so I'll stop there and turn
Okay.
it to you, Ryan.
Sure. Yeah, I recently had I was working on a project where I ran into something very very similar to that. Um, I, I didn't create the project. I didn't write the script. But I'm supposed to draw what's there, and I did my part. But there are multiple stages in this comic. It's actually a comic, and um, when it came to coloring, you know, the colors came in and was basically almost stereotyping, the black people that was in there, like with the color choices and stuff like that. And here I am as an artist. I'm like, I got to make a decision. So I had to pull some strings to kind of make some changes, because I'm like, I can't fall into that bucket. I can't allow black people to fall into this bucket. So we need to start to break some of the stereotypes that's out there. So that's one thing I just had to say that. But as an independent artist, yeah, I have struggled in the past, with uh, deciding on certain jobs to take. And honestly, I'm the type of person, I don't like to say no to pretty much anything. Um, but I have struggled in the past where I've had to weigh, okay, is this job worth the money versus, you know, the damage I can do to to either black people or, you know, certain type of you know, genres, or just a move, the movement, you know, that type of thing. Black Lives Matter, when that came about and all the riots and all the stuff that's going on in America, um, um, DC Comics called me to do a couple of pages, and in those pages there was a there were people who had giant signs that said they wanted them to have Black Lives Matter in there, and I was kind of struggling on that because I'm like, okay, is this something, you know, who's calling the shots, who's making the decisions? I'm all for Black Lives Matter, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm, you know, there is it, who's making the decision. And now when I draw this, they're not going to look at the decisions makers, the people, the fans, they're going to look at me, and they're going to be calling shots. They're going to be like, oh, pulling this, pulling that, and they're going to be, you know, so it starts to stigmatize, you know, certain things. So um um I've created properties in the past, that had or engulfed the black culture, and other stuff that hasn't had any of that. Um, um, I try not to make my decisions based on uh, my blackness, or or um, or like just basically, I try to, my number one focus is the audience. That's where my focus is. My focus is on the audience. Who am I producing this for? You know, what am I getting out of this, and who am I entertaining? I'm here to entertain you, but I'm not going to sacrifice, you know, black culture to entertain you at the same time. So as I'm thinking and I'm producing um, 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 with certain projects, certain IPs, I am well aware of the stigmas that's out there, the stereotypes that's out there, and I choose not to lean or lend any hand towards that to help uplift or keep, you know, the certain narrative that's out there strong and going. You know, I am all about, okay, we need to break this and change this and fix this. And here I am as an artist. I am the tip of the spear. I'm the tip of the visual spear that people that can pierce that. So I that's one thing that weighs heavily on my decisions, um, when I'm producing and creating IPs or anything like that. Um, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Maria, or if you want to take over.
Thank you for that. This is a hard question because I feel like we could talk all day
Yeah.
about this. Um, just to start off, I would just say, you know, I had hard lessons to understand what I meant by independent, you know, and I think this goes back to your statement, Shane, like what is independent? Because independent can sound super cute and it can look good on social media. It can look good on a t-shirt. It can look good as, you know, the banner on your logo. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of define it for yourself every single time. And I've had many different kind of, I think, as Stephanie mentioned, like pivots throughout my career. Like I worked in corporate America right out of undergrad as a data analyst before it was cute. And then I went to art school, and I didn't know what the hell that was. And I went to a very independent art school, Cal Arts, and, you know, they basically gave you a camera and a lawn and they were like, make something. And I was like, but aren't there directions? aren't there instructions? Like, what do you want me to make? And then they really put it upon me every single time, even to the point I was graduating. Like, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to make? And so then I started to like go into the industry after grad school, and I was working for major studios. I was working for major producers, and I was doing lots of ghostwriting as a screenwriter. And I can tell you, I mean, there are so many stories I have about the unrecognized labor of Black women, but I can also tell stories about just the way the industry works that doesn't credit people where they should be credited. And so that independent spirit kind of like burned inside of me to the point that I came back to San Francisco, where I'm from, to like try and figure out how to do what I want to do here. And all the while, I'm like defining what I mean. And all the while, every year that passes, every person that I meet, I'm kind of really narrowing what that definition means for me. And after like 15 years in the industry, I'm going to go back to what Terrence has said about community. It has been the community that has really helped me shape and define what that means. And that's been really special. Filmmakers and artists, particularly, I've worked with Saul Williams for about 10 years now, and seeing the way that he's really, you know, defined his career and the way that he has continued to make art and the way he has continued to hone and own his voice and what he says and how his art, even down to the money, right? Like it's not just like he's saying it because it's cute. He's literally doing it down to the point, like we at his house packing mailers because this is what independent looks like, right? Or crowdfunding for $250,000, and that looks cute at the end of the day, but those 2 months up to it is like us calling every single one of our friends asking for $1, asking for $5, asking for $20, and sometimes, you know, 20,000 if they got it, if you got those kind of friends. So like now I'm at the place where I forget who said it, but not to carry on too much, but that no is highly important to my well-being, to my life, to my art, to my soul, because my yeses can be mostly people want me on a project because it looks good and the representation is key to that project moving forward. Although, are they listening to my opinion? Are they taking my advice? Are we moving ahead in a way that makes sense for Black people, right? And to the sense that I will rarely work on projects that are about Black people unless I am very active and proactive towards that kind of working on those projects, right? All white people call me all day long, work on my project. And to a certain extent, like it was paying my bills for a number of years, until the point where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It's just not working for me. And so now I'm finally like shaping a space where I have this wonderful level of projects that I'm working on, whether it's my own project or projects that I'm producing, but I'm also working in a way that I can sleep at night, if that makes sense, because this industry can really keep you up at night and you can be tossing and turning over, oh my God, I hope my people ain't mad at me over my name on that project. So that's all I gotta say.
Yep. I can attest to that one.
No doubt. Yeah. I can relate as well. It's like, you know, if I've lost some sleep over that, right? Like, what are folks going to think, right? Because I'm attached to this. Now, here's another element of that, right? That I would really want to invite y'all to just jump in and discuss is, Maria, you kind of talked about some of the trade-offs, right? And you know, hey, are the people actually being acknowledged for the work that they're doing, right? Especially Black people, especially our people, right? Are we being acknowledged? Then the other side of that is, are we getting paid? Because that is a form of equity too. Like, are you valuing my time? Are you honoring my time with actual payment, like living wage kind of payment, right? And then the third piece that I think you're talking about too, that you really did bring up, is like uh, creative control, right? Like, these are all elements of independence. These are all elements of ownership. And I know I've had to walk into rooms, and some of them I've had to walk back out of, because like, okay, you're going to give me the title, but you want me to thank you for the title and do this volunteer work, right? But how does that align, right, with the systemic inequities that I face as a Black man? You know what I mean? Let alone those systemic inequities that Black women have faced, right? And you want me to work for free for that title, right? So, you know what? There are two things I really want to pass it around to the entire group here, right? Uh, and number one is, how do you think about building that equity? How do you think about kind of walking into those rooms and demanding the title, the wage, the the creative freedom, right? Because you're not going to get all three all the time, right? We just know that. We have to navigate this world. How do you think about those trade-offs, and how do you think about building power right? Because power does not relent without power in its face, right? So how do you think about building power within your career, within your pen, within all of that? And then two, I would like to invite everyone to just share, like, where can we find your work, right? Like, a lot of times we're also taught just sit down and thank us for like having being at the table, or being in a room or being at the conference. And we need to be demanding ours, and we need to be uh, promoting our work, right? Shamelessly. Like there's no place for shame in that. You know what I mean? Like I would love for all of you to tell us where we can come support your work, experience your work, and just support the work that you're doing. So with that, Stephanie, would you mind kicking us off in terms of just kind of that piece of kind of, how do you think about approaching the trade-off, and where can we find your work? How can we support you uh, in your work?
Um, so I try not to say yes to anything that I'm going to lose sleep over, be it stress because it was something that I should have absolutely said no. Stress because I'm just saying yes because I want to always make sure that I'm taking advantage of opportunities, but sometimes those opportunities are just not for me. And I can say no in hopes that something that I finally say yes will make up for that financial output. Because is it great if I'm able to pay a bill? Absolutely. But it is not great if I'm harming members of the community by doing that. So that's just been a rule of thumb of mine. And so far, I haven't had to falter on that. And I hope that that continues to be the same way. But as far as my work, you can go to whystuff.com. There are links to my authoring page because I write for a bunch of different places. That is the beauty of freelance. I don't have to be stuck one place, but it's always my voice. Also, as far as my webcomics, you can find them there. But What If Though, which is kind of like this satire playing with different IPs, and also Parenthood Activate, where I talk about or make fun of. I don't know, just some of the hard things about being a parent and some of the great things about being a parent. And next month in July 27th, I have a Wonder Woman and Nubia story coming out for DC for Wonder Woman Black and Gold #2. And if you follow me on Twitter at Steph_I_Will, I have some really big news because um, I've worked really hard to get where I am, and this next project that I have on the way, I'm really proud of it because, again, it's something that I obtained by staying very true to myself, and I haven't had to falter on that. So, whether it is for a corporation or it's for myself, at the end of the day, like I know it's me, so I sleep good.
Appreciate that. That's amazing, and I really applaud your work and having the bravery to step out and pursue that. Uh, so thank you for that response. One thing I want to do here is the most important thing for me is to make sure that we highlight all of your work, right? And so that the audience and everyone out there can come and find you and find your work and support the great work that y'all are doing. So that's what we'll do here now for the next 5 minutes that we have for this panel. And and before we go into that final piece, I do want to say that just acknowledge, Chris Walker is the one that invited me to be a part of this, and I want to shout his work out on URBANIME and the work that they're doing. So for those that don't know, URBANIME is a culture company that empowers Black and Brown audiences by making culture the hero through comics, culture zines, and comic media activations. So the mission is to celebrate Black creativity and highlight the culture and heritage of Black music and our ability to create on Juneteenth with Virtuous Con. So I just want to shout URBANIME out for convening this important conversation. And then I won't ask you the very difficult trade-off questions. I know that's hard, but please just go around and Maria, why don't you share where can we find your work? Uh,
Awesome.
Please.
Uh, right now, I do have a little bit of news. If anybody is going to be at Cannes this year in July. A project I've been producing for, I think, about 6 years with Saul Williams, Neptune Frost, which is a sci-fi musical shot in Rwanda, will be at Cannes. So we're very excited for that. July 12th, we are screening. So if you find yourself on, the south of France, swing by, come to our screening. And then personally, my feature film that I'm directing, my first feature, is in post-production right now. So hopefully that should be out soon. And you can find all my work on my website, and you can find all about, my website is Maria AJ. My middle initial, don't tell anybody, is Annette. So mariaaj.com. And everything about Quelly TV, quellytv.com. I say check it out. All your Juneteenth programming is on Quelly, so go check us out. And it's Black History Month, it's Juneteenth month every day for Black people, so we ain't worried about whatever holidays that they designate for us.
Yep, yep.
That's what's up. Can you spell Quali for us?
Yes, kwelitv.com.
Awesome. Terrence,
Yes.
where can we support you?
aagd.co. That's where I am everywhere. That's where the family lives. If you are looking to join a very interesting, truthful, transparent group of creatives, that's where to find us. And I want to say something really quick about the power. Power is a choice. And as creatives, we need to curate our choices. Our choices are our portfolio more than the things that we actually create. That's it. It's been a pleasure being here.
I love that definition. Ryan, where can we find your work and support your work?
So real quick, one thing I like to tell the younger audience out there, and I love to target the younger audience because they're the up and coming. Um, the two things that's going to carry you far in this industry is your talent and your connections. So work on both of them. You got to have a strong talent, and you got to be able to connect with people within the industry, rub elbows, share your information, just get that stuff about it. Be a people person, because at some point you're gonna have to work with a group of people, a group of artists or something. So the easiest and quickest way to get a hold of me is just go to ryanbenjamin.com. You get a broad range of stuff I've worked on. You get my portfolio, you get my contact page there. I also live stream on Twitch every Monday night. I do live art demonstrations for about 2 or 3 hours. Um, and I also teach professional comic book art at Comic Pro Bootcamp .com. So you can go there. You can find out more about that and how to. And we actually teach young and upcoming artists how to polish their art and turn their craft into a professional format, either for independent publishing or if you plan on or trying to get yourself plugged into Marvel, DC, that type of venue. So even like webtoons or any kind of digital comics that's out there. And just my handle is at RYANBNJMN. You can use that for anything: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's my handle for everything.
Thanks, Ryan. And Wesley, where can we find your work, support your work?
Hi, I just wanted to jump off something that Ryan just said about talent and being connected. I'd also say like having self-belief and valuing yourself. I think one of the biggest things for me, like for instance, when you're charging someone to do something, it's like if you charge a low rate or whatever it is, that's how people will see you. And the moment I'm like, you know what, I'm worth more than this, people started seeing me in that way, sort of thing. So you have to see it yourself first. Um, you can find my work at thelineanimation.com. So some of the shorts and things I've directed there, or you can check my Instagram out at Libra Bear on Instagram. And we also have the Line Animation has an Instagram as well. So yes, it's thelineanimation.com for the website.
Thank you so much, Wesley. And that's wisdom right there, is valuing self above all else. Self-care, do some of that for Juneteenth. Please, everyone that's here. Uh, so important that we take care of ourselves. The most important, like I'm an investor professionally, and at times, and I have my own issues with kind of the way that that system is structured, that I'm wrestling with myself. And but one thing that I'm not conflicted about is when I learned that the most important and valuable investment that I can make is in me, because the compounding effect of investing in yourself, it just like continues to increase upon itself. So that is the one most important thing that, like, if I could tell myself from 25 years ago, I was still in undergrad, and you know, it would be that, like, invest in me, and that's not selfish, right? That's not indulgent. That's just smart. It's just good. It's just self-care. And it's so important in all the ways, mental, psychological, physical, all the things. So, and with that, I'll share that, on my side, for all of you aspiring investors out there who want to change the system from the inside, I'm at, cinematicalabs.com, wolverineangels.com, and I'm also investor in and CFO of Seed and Spark. Stepped into one of my portfolio companies, and they have, like, a really great crowdfunding platform, rewards-based crowdfunding platform specifically for creators, and a lot of educational resources for that, tailored mostly to filmmakers, but for everyone. So that's the other place that I will share that you can find me. So with that, again, shout out to Virtuous Con for this Juneteenth celebration, and appreciate URBANIME and Chris for convening this conversation. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.